It's Cadasaling on Sporting Icons.
Okay, so following the WBC's statement clearing Conor Benn, where they pointed towards eggs as being the reason why he had an abnormal finding in his test results. Anyway, Conor Benn seemed quite unhappy with them just saying it was eggs. So he wanted to go into detail in his own defence. And he's put out quite a lengthy statement, so I'll get straight into it with no further ado. And this is what Conor Benn had to say. The WBC declared me innocent of being a drugs cheat. I'm grateful for the ultimate finding. It was the right decision, and it was the only one I was willing to accept. The easy option would have been to accept a 6-month ban, save myself a huge legal bill, and simply move on. But my reputation and my family name is worth more than that. My only frustration in the manner in which I've been cleared, it seems to create further questions and add further fuel to basis negative speculation. As such, having now had a chance to digest, I wanted to set out my position in full and explain in the simplest terms possible why I am innocent. As you will have gathered from my posts and comments over the past few months, I've always been extremely confident that I will be cleared. That's because of all the evidence and information that came to light during our investigation into how this happened proves what I already knew, that I'm innocent. However, because of ongoing legal proceedings, I have been repeatedly advised not to say anything. Keeping silent when I have this evidence in my possession and listening to ignorant, uninformed commentary was one of the hardest parts of this process. Even following the WBC statement, I could have just said, my team and I will not stay silent any longer, and have let the facts be known. So here's what I can say. In my defence to the WBC in the 270-page document report provided to them, at no point did I indicate that I failed any VADA tests because of contaminated eggs. As part of its lengthy investigation, the WBC instructed his own experts to review my supplements and diet, and they concluded that egg contamination was the most likely cause. Those experts have seen this issue arise in other athletes across other sports. I have no reason to question their analysis when it concludes that I'm not a cheat. However, I feel the WBC statement did a disservice to my defence, which was based upon a comprehensive scientific review of the testing procedures, which set out a number of reasons why we believe the results were completely unreliable and proved beyond any reasonable doubt that I am innocent. The report prepared by my science and legal team contained extensive analysis of both tests and concluded that there were clear evidence of fundamental flaws and irregularities. By way of just one example, my sample appears to have come back clear the first 3 times it was tested. Without explanation, it was retested again after 9 days. Only then did it report a negative result. It should only have been tested once. These critical findings were endorsed by an independent expert scientist who provides accreditation to laboratories, and in his opinion was that many issues were so troubling and serious that the lab could lose its accreditation. My team will be referring the issues to the relevant accreditation body so it can make its own determination. For what it's worth, and contrary to the media speculation at the time, I requested the B sample be tested at the earliest opportunity. Because of the importance of trying to get to the bottom of what had happened, I arranged for a scientist to fly across the world to attend the testing procedure in person, as you're allowed to do under their rules. And unbelievably, she was not even allowed to be in the room when the test results come through. How's that for transparency? I've been advised that's a major breach of an athlete's right, and it's been necessary to go to court of arbitration for sport on this case to prove my innocence. That alone will have meant the test results were dismissed. Let me be absolutely clear though, my defence is not a technical defence to exploit a loophole. I'm convinced that the substance was never in my system, and I certainly never knowingly ingested. I'm told it's something that supposedly stays in the body for months, and yet barely a week after failing a VADA test, I passed a UCAD test. I've never previously failed any kind of anti-doping test and passed multiple tests with both UCAD and VADA in close proximity to the 2 tests and returned adverse findings. This adds further proof to my belief that the findings were testing errors. Even if it was actually in my system, it was at such a low level they could never have had an effect and could never have been consumed with the intention of having an effect. That's why Eubank Jr. was willing to go ahead with the fight, having taken his own medical advice, as we supplied all of the relevant information to them at the time, and indeed the British Boxing Board of Control back in early October 2022. For now, I have to focus on rebuilding my career, as this has cost me a great deal of time and money. But at some point, I want to make a stand on behalf of athletes who may find themselves in a similar devastating position to me, but without the expertise or the resources to clear their name. Everything I have learned during the process from talking to many experts gives me serious concerns about the whole testing system. Anti-doping protections are obviously extremely important, but it's also ensuring people are given due process and presumed innocent until proven guilty. Cheaters should be caught and punished, but people like me who prove their innocence should be vindicated and allowed to continue their career. For those who gave me their unwavering support, I will forever be grateful. For those who said they will wait for a verdict before deciding I was guilty, I appreciate your patience. As for the British Boxing Board of Control, they attacked me publicly and privately during the most difficult time of my life, treating me with utter contempt and without any consideration for fair process or my mental state. I'm aware that many people will not even bother to read this statement in full and continue to make their snap judgments without thinking. There's nothing I can do to change that, but I will take comfort in what I know is true, and I've proven with evidence I am innocent. I wouldn't wish for my worst enemy to experience what me and my family have gone through, but next step into the ring, I will meant to be tougher than I was before. Conor Benn's statement. Now, that was a bit of a mouthful. It was quite difficult to read due to the amount of complicated words and whatever. Anyway, now, I think in a nutshell of what I gathered from that was that the laboratory who done a test on Conor Benn, they tested, for example, one sample 3 times and it come back clear, and tested it again, and only then did it come up with an adverse finding. When you're only really supposed to be testing something once. So you dip it, you test it, you move on. But it took them 4 attempts to do it. That is weird. That is weird. So I'm presuming that he's saying that the laboratory fixed his results. That's what he's presuming, because when he mentioned about having the B sample tested, he sent someone over there, and within the rules, you're allowed to be there when they open up the B sample, do the test, and then come up with the results. She wasn't allowed, which again is a breach of their so-called rules. So are they hiding something? I don't know. Now, it does make you wonder why the WBC put out the statement that they did, where they just said a contamination of eggs or consumed too many eggs, however it may be. But they left out a lot of it. Now, is that because they work with VADA and they don't want VADA to come under any kind of scrutiny? And they're hoping that Conor Benn weren't going to say anything based on the fact that they've just cleared him. Maybe. Again, that part's speculation. We don't know until Conor Benn takes that further. Now, as for him listening to commentary of people slating him and slandering him and calling him a cheat and all other kind of things, and other people saying, going to wait for the verdict to come through to see what happens, i.e. that's where I fit in, and other people who just said, he's innocent, I don't believe any of it. Now, firstly, if you're in that kind of situation, why would you listen to what YouTubers say, to what commentators say on radio or TalkSport or whatever? Why would you listen? I never understood when people do that kind of thing, because really you're just self-torturing, aren't you? People are going to have opinions, of course they are. And roles reverse, if Conor Benn was not in this situation, and for example, if it was Chris Eubank Jr., I'm pretty sure Conor Benn would be going at Chris Eubank Jr. the same way that Junior's gone back at Conor Benn, and other people have gone at Conor Benn. So he does have to take a backward step a little bit on that one and to think how he would react to other people, right? Now, as far as the British Boxing Board of Control, now apparently he's looking to sue them to be reimbursed for the kind of money that he lost on that Chris Eubank Jr. fight. Around £3.5 million. What's that, about $4 million? So, firstly, I don't think they can afford to pay that, okay? And if they did end up having to pay that, if it did go further and it went to court, tribunal, however, and Conor Benn won, that's pretty much the British Boxing Board of Control gone. Close the doors, shut the windows, put the lockers on, okay, it's pretty much done. So with his statement here about the British Box Border Control, how they've treated him with utter contempt, publicly bashed him, privately bashed him when he's at his most delicate time and all that kind of stuff, is something else to add to a potential court case, isn't it? It is, with the whole mental health issues and things like that. Now, is a lot of it just fronting, just to get the British Box Border Control to go, you know what, we're not even going to look at anything really. We're going to pretend to look, but ultimately we're going to clear you, which of course we know the British Box Border Control would do anyway. Of course it would. They're not going to go against what the WBC ruling is. They're not, okay? But they need to be seen to be doing something, right? So they're going to pretend to investigate it properly, then clear him, in my opinion. Unless, of course, they could go through a complete investigation and then permanently remove his licence or suspend his licence, however. But that's still not going to stop him fighting. It isn't. Even without the British Box Border Control, he can still fight in the UK just under a different licence, whether it be through BBBO or whatever. Okay, there's ways around it. But I think the British Box Border Control handled it wrongly. I do feel that they have a lot to look at themselves, the way that they handled this whole Conor Benn situation. And it's not like they haven't been in these kind of situations before. They have similar experiences. Okay, they do. But also, Conor Benn has to take into account as well his own actions, and something he didn't address there, which I was hoping that he would have done. And in time, I'm sure he will, if somebody out there actually asks him the right question. And again, Eddie Hearn also has to answer this as well, which is, regardless of him being innocent or not, when the first test result came through, you immediately take action. What you don't do is continue training, continue your training camp, sign a fight with Chris Eubank Jr. or however, if that was the period, again according to Chris Eubank Jr., and then try and go ahead with a fight, especially when a second test came in. You don't do that. After the first test, you get it sorted. You don't wait for a second test and still try and get the fight on. Regardless of whether or not you feel that you're innocent or not, you get it done. And Conor Benn, and I'm sure he's man enough to, he's going to have to hold his hands up on that one and say he could have handled that better himself. He should have just went, right, first test, okay, right, let's get this sorted out. Let's get to the bottom of this right now. Because I'm not going to be fighting or anything until I know. Because again, listen, fighters are human beings, and sometimes you can ingest things that you don't mean to. You know, if you go out for dinner or whatever, because you don't know what's in their food, you don't. And that's the reality of it. Anything can and does happen. So what he should have done in the very first instance, and what Eddie Hearn should have done in the very first instance, was get it done, get it investigated. Forget training camp, forget the fight with Chris Eubank Jr., all the negotiations and going through with the camp, forget all that. Don't wait for a second test. Then continue weeks later and try and go through with the fight a couple of days before it's actually pulled. They should have pulled it themselves way back when. Conor Benn needs to say, yeah, you're right. I should have really investigated it then. I shouldn't have let it go on because, again, when something like that happens, when no action is taken, or no action it appeared was taken after the first one, and then only a second one, once it was revealed to the public, only then did they try to investigate it. But by the looks of it, only then people are going to go, you got something to hide then, haven't you? You were knowingly taking something and still tried to fight anyway. Try and brush it under the carpet like VADA test didn't matter. That's the ownership he's got to take. It is. Innocent or not innocent. That's what any fighter should do. You fail a test, you pause whatever the hell it is that you're doing, and you get on with the result. And you get to the bottom of it. Okay? Now, if it is contamination in the lab or he's being stitched up somewhere along the lines, hopefully he gets to the bottom of it. Because there could be a lot of fighters out there who's failing tests and they shouldn't be. If he's being stitched up, I hope they find out for real who's stitching them up. And of course, in a previous statement as well from Conor Benn, a very brief one, he kind of gives the impression that he feels the British Box Border Control are out to get him because of his father, Nigel Benn, ripped up his British Boxing Border Control licence live on TV. I said a lot of it could just be mind games playing with the board, just so they go, hold on, here's your licence back, don't worry about it, sorry. It could be that. Anyway, that's my thoughts. You drop me yours. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you next video.